I'm holding the mic closer.
In West Philadelphia, I was born and raised.
On the playground, did you spend any days there?
Most of them.
Great. I'm happy for you.
Thanks. My mom was really upset that I was being so rowdy, and so she sent me to live with my uncle and aunt in this small town called Bel Air.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and for some reason they started calling me the Fresh Prince, and I don't know where that name came from.
The Fresh Prince. What were you the prince of?
Of Bel Air.
Of Bel Air?
Yeah.
Like, part of the royal family?
Yeah.
That's crazy. I didn't even know they had a royal family.
I don't know why I earned that name. I don't know what happened.
Someone needs to research this.
I was drinking orange juice on the plane, and here I am.
Wow.
The Fresh Prince of Bel Air. I'm also Will Smith, in case you didn't know.
I didn't know. Did you get some work done?
No.
Oh. Wow, the camera does things to you. And you're how old?
I don't know.
I was convinced you were 26.
No.
Okay.
I'm ready to call the police. Go ahead.
No, for the right reason.
You want me to drop to my knees?
Yes, do it.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, there you go.
Hello, everybody. My name's Torin,
And I'm Sam.
and we've just lied to you. Welcome to the first episode of SpiceCast, a Rogue Valley Pepper Shakers production. This is the first time we've done this. We've tried before to do this, but it's been unsuccessful.
There's been at least one attempt. Was there more than that?
I think just one.
Okay.
I think just one. We should add a clip of
Oh, God.
like us trying to do the podcast
With our webcam.
Yeah. I mean, we did our best. We do what we can.
It was not the worst.
It could have been worse.
We've made worse content than that one was.
That's true. That's true. I mean, you never win all of them. And if you did, what would be the fun in it?
And then I spent many hours editing it, and we never did anything with it.
No.
I guess we will now.
Add it.
Yep. We gonna kiss? And there we go.
It's going to be one of us editing it. Someone add it.
Yeah.
Wow. This is the SpiceCast. We're the Rogue Valley Pepper Shakers. What the hell is the Rogue Valley Pepper Shakers, Torin?
That's a great question. So we are a group of folks that go and yell at Christians.
Yeah, I mean, at the core of things.
Amongst other things.
Truly. I mean, let's talk a little bit about the history of the Rogue Valley Pepper Shakers, right? So the Rogue Valley Pepper Shakers was formed in 2020, is that right? 2020 by a group of high schoolers, Torin included, and our lovely friend Red, who saw the Salt Shakers, which is why we have our name, the Pepper Shakers, outside of the Planned Parenthood clinic, and they saw them at events, and they realized that someone's got to do something about this. Hi, this is Sam in post. Actually, just immediately after watching this, we forgot to describe what the Salt Shakers was. So the Salt Shakers is the group of Christo-fascists that are from Southern Oregon, or one of the groups of Christo-fascists in Southern Oregon that come and try to disrupt Pride and are outside of the Planned Parenthood clinics. We're going to talk more about them, but that's the context that you need, and I am so sorry I didn't do that before. And so they did. They started going out to Medford, the Planned Parenthood clinic, and countering the bigots very early on. And back then, it was more of a we're going to stand in the way kind of situation. But I joined in March of 2020, I believe.
Like a few weeks after its beginning.
Yeah.
So.
I saw Torin on the side of the road. At that point, it was just Torin going out, and they were holding a Black Lives Matter sign. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. What's happening? So I joined, and the rest is history. But that's history I'm going to describe right now.
Let's talk about it.
But let's talk about that. So I joined Torin, and it very quickly became our passion project. And so we got a lot of people to come out, and we started doing what we called Tuesday Pride, which is we invited a bunch of people to come out on Tuesdays, which was the day that the salt shakers were going out to the Planned Parenthood clinic.
Boo.
Truly, they were pretty consistent about it, but it was wonderful, and we met a lot of really cool people. Me and Torrin really bonded over that time, and ever since then, we've been developing our tactics on how to deal with these people. So a lot of the times back then, we would just not engage and try to be friendly with them and have meaningful conversation, and these days, that is not our approach, but we support a diversity of tactics. The biggest tactic that we use is being absolutely bombastically silly. You may have seen our videos. If not, you should watch them. A shameless plug. But also, you know, we do a lot of other things, right? So we have a training, shameless plug, where we talk about our tactics. And one of the other tactics is playing copyrighted music, right? So sometimes we'll play Disney music. Sometimes we'll play Disney music, and so really copyrighted things that people will go after people for playing. So that's been really effective. And also in the last year, we got really, really lucky, and we applied for funding. We became a nonprofit, a 501c3, and we applied for funding through the Pride Foundation. Woo! Shout out to the Pride Foundation.
Yeah.
And because of that funding, we were able to start offering gender affirming supplies to people, and even some gender affirming support. We were able to get some people laser hair removal. We're able to get some people haircuts and pay for travel for appointments. And that's been really, really cool and rewarding. And we're hoping we can continue that, which is one of the reasons that we're doing this podcast, is to continue raising revenue so we can keep offering those things to people. Just as of filming right now, we've offered hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of supplies to people, helped hundreds of Oregonians get supplies like binders, packers, packing underwear, things of the like. And so hopefully you can help us continue to do that for our local Oregonians, and then we can expand and do it for others.
Yeah. And also, if you would like to do that, a good way to do that is through our Patreon. You can find our Patreon at patreon.com/RVPeppershakers, where you can do anywhere from $2 to $100 a month, supporting us and allowing us to keep giving out those supplies to folks. So it's a great thing that you can do to help little old us, because funding is hard to get.
Funding's hard, and like I think that's something that not a lot of people talk about. Like I would think we would be considered a big creator at this point, right?
In some aspects,
right? Like we're
with little engagement.
Yeah, we have a lot of like we have a big local following. Freddie,
this is Freddie, my baby.
Yeah, funding's a hard thing to come by, and like, you know, we have a pretty big following locally here in Southern Oregon. We also, I think the biggest following that we have online is TikTok, which is really awesome, and we really got a lot of following very quickly, but we don't have a lot of engagement. So, butthole. You see his little butthole?
A little butthole.
It's
Freddie
so
butt.
white.
Just gonna have to like motion track and glue that whole thing. We can't have Freddie butthole on this podcast.
No, just put his face over it. Wow, funding. Whoa. It's so hard. I can't believe how hard it is to get funding. But something that I learned from a very good friend, a friend that you know as well, that I also work with in my day job.
Oh, wow.
Shout out to that friend. You know who you are.
I'm about to know who they are, probably.
Told me there is money out there. There's always money out there, and there's always people willing to give money.
Yep.
Fuck.
Freddie's trying to get into the water.
You should exploit rich people. Exploit rich people because they want... What they want is what you will do, but you'll do it 10 times better and in a way that'll actually do things. So support our cause. If you're a rich liberal, you should donate to our Patreon.
Now, Sam, when you say liberal, can you describe to me, or describe to the viewers, more importantly, what you mean by that? Because some people might hear liberal and they go, well, but I'm a liberal. I am on the left and therefore I'm a liberal.
This is true. I consider myself a leftist. Do you consider yourself a leftist?
I consider myself a leftist.
Wow. Me too. So when I say that I'm a leftist, that doesn't mean that I don't agree with a lot of the things that liberals agree with, right? So when I say liberal versus leftist, a liberal is someone who believes, for instance, maybe they should vote for Kamala Harris. Someone who believes that if you vote, it will change the world, and that voting blue is the only way to get forward in this country. A liberal might think that abortion is a right, but a liberal might also misgender you and call you a woman, right? So there's a difference between a liberal and a leftist. As a leftist, I recognize and hold space for people who can get pregnant and who can get abortions who maybe aren't women. But a liberal will not have those differences in their head. There's not a lot of nuance for them.
Sometimes.
Sometimes that's true. Again, these are blanket statements, and that's not always true. Not all leftists are like that either.
True.
You know, there's some leftists that are like us, where we're like, there's a diversity and there's nuance to everything, but there's also people that don't act like that. I've met leftists who are really ableist or really fat phobic, sometimes even transphobic, and maybe they don't realize it. So I mean, it is a blanket statement to say that liberals are inherently and more problematic than leftists, right? But I've never been peace policed by a leftist.
Correct.
It's almost always been a liberal. And again, what is peace policing, Torrin? Can you tell me about that?
Peace policing is when someone generally in like a position of privilege or a position of power in some way, or someone that just doesn't like something that's going on, polices other people's behavior because they see it as being like not helpful or like this hurts our image or whatever, when it's not actually racist, homophobic, transphobic, misogynistic, whatever. Like it's not actually problematic, but they don't like the behavior. It makes them uncomfy. So they say, hey, you shouldn't do that. Like, for example, you're at a protest. People start going in the street. They're being rowdy. And then cats are getting rowdy right now. And I'm not going to peace police them about it.
Do what you have to do.
Do what you have to do, kitties. I love you. Anyways, example. People are at a protest. People are getting in the road, getting rowdy. And someone goes, hey, that makes me uncomfortable. I don't like it. They need to stop because there's conflict happening. And that makes me uncomfortable. And so they start yelling at people and telling them to stop doing what they're doing. That's peace policing. Because it's not helpful, not really beneficial to the cause. But they're like, I don't like it. I don't like it.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think, something that we've experienced a lot.
I need to kick the cats out.
Okay. Yeah, totally.
I just kicked like 2 or 3 cats out of this room. They were being menaces.
Yeah.
I did end up peace policing a little bit.
That's really fucked up.
I couldn't have that. I was overstimulated.
Well, and we talk about peace policing on the grounds of like there's not actually something racist, homophobic, xenophobic, or transphobic actually happening, and people will police the behavior of someone just because they don't like it, right? So and we see those behaviors a lot, and maybe you're thinking like your mom who's like, oh, you're a woman, you shouldn't be dressed like that. And it's like, that's policing in a way. It's maybe not peace policing, but that's policing, and we don't do that. We don't like the police.
Fuck those guys.
Hot take.
Police are bad.
Speaking of the police, in the following portion of this episode, we talk about current events. And for context, this episode was filmed on September 12th, 2024. Guess what we're doing with the Medford Police Department?
The Pepper Shakers and others, being represented by the ACLU of Oregon and others, are suing the City of Medford over the Medford Police Department illegally surveilling us and other activists. This was found through public record, and it was discovered that basically the Medford Police Department has been allegedly surveilling activists, leftist activists, progressive activists, since like 2016. So that's a thing that's happening at the moment.
Yeah, and I think the craziest part is we are not surprised that this is happening. We're not surprised that the Medford Police Department has been surveilling us. We're not surprised that the city's been talking about us. But what is surprising to us is who is willing to back us, right? So the ACLU of Oregon is helping us file this lawsuit and is in fact just taking it on as their caseload, which is something really incredible. If anyone knows about the ACLU, they are a really incredible team of lawyers. I think it's a lawyers guild, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Or a union. That takes on civil liberties cases or cases in general that have to do with human rights, civil liberties in general. And them taking this case on is huge for us, and we're really excited to work with them. So far, they've been incredible. A little bit of history about what's going on with that and why this is something that's so important. The ACLU back in the 80s was one of many groups, and I think not just activists, but groups that were doing activist work, right? So the ACLU, there were some mutual aid groups, there were some individuals that were being surveilled by a local police department. And in that, they decided that's not cool. And they filed for legislation to change. And part of that legislation was to make it illegal to surveil people in the absence of crime, which is exactly what we're suing the police department for now. So the case law went through. That was something that was set in stone. And now the precedent has been set. And so since the Medford Police Department has been doing that and violating that exact legislation, the ACLU said, And so now they're here supporting us in Medford, Oregon. Wow. Incredible.
That's great.
Thanks.
We love the ACLU.
We love the ACLU. They're wonderful. They're doing great work, and we really appreciate them supporting us in what we do. So in other local news, a few things happened in legislation. Some really bad things, unfortunately, both for drug users and people living outside. The first of which was Measure 110, which was the drug decriminalization bill that went into effect, I believe, in 2020. The legislation said that possession amounts of hard drugs or illicit substances were no longer crimes in the sense that you couldn't go to jail for them. Of course, there were still clauses that if there was an intent to distribute, or if you had a certain amount, or if you had alternative crimes or other things like that, that they could send you away. But it was a misdemeanor and it was a ticket at most. That got overturned. That got overturned on September 1st. And as soon as they overturned it, the police started going out and arresting people for residue, which was really gross. We saw it in full swing. We went out to an encampment in Grants Pass where they also just passed a essentially anti-houseless law that makes it illegal for people to camp anywhere other than 2 designated zones in the city that people that are staying there call both concentration camps and internment camps. This also went into effect on September 1st. And Grants Pass is in Southern Oregon. It's about 30 minutes north of us. We went there to distribute supplies. We had water and plenty of other things. And we were not there very long until 2 police officers showed up to harass someone who had their car parked in one of the very few spots where you can park a car in this area. And by the time we got out there to the person's car, which he was also not at the car, they had pulled out what they claimed was a pipe with meth in it. But what it was a pipe with residue in it, which they did not test. And they immediately arrested the person that was near the car and took them away to jail. So it was a really scary combination of this anti-homelessness bill being passed in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court sided with the city of Grants Pass in this. The case is called Grants Pass v. Johnson. You can look it up. We can also link it in our bio in this video. The description of this video. It's really scary to see them both go into effect on the same day and to see the effects of both of them. As of filming this video, there is no running water at either of these camps. The only shade has been provided by a separate nonprofit that is not affiliated with the city, run by doctors and nurses. They went in with their own money and put up canopies and tables and chairs for people to have shade and places to sit. The only thing that the city has provided in these spaces are police cameras. And when we went to go distribute supplies this last Sunday, they had put more porta potties in, and wow, they put in hand washing stations.
So generous,
incredible. But when we were talking about this last was the city council meeting that they had in Grants Pass on this last Wednesday. They spoke not about what was happening at these camps, but they spoke about needing 6 feet apart from each tent. And they spoke about how there's illegal things happening. And they need 6 feet apart from each tent so they can see the illegal things happening. The chief of police mentioned that he watches the camera live to see what people are doing because he's a fucking creep. So, there's many things happening. Drug users are being criminalized again. They're being forced to choose between abandoning their family that lives outside and go to jail or go to treatment that they are being coerced into doing. The other thing with Grants Pass is that there's no beds. There's no beds in shelters. Their shelters are minimal. And the only shelters that are available are faith-based, which are incredibly coercive. Medford isn't any better, but Grants Pass is especially rough. So we're seeing houseless people be discriminated against and being told that they can only sleep in these internment camps, which are terrible places. And we're also seeing drug users be criminalized again and shamed, both in City Hall and in the law, in the legislation. The Supreme Court essentially said, yeah, these people are illegal and they shouldn't be able to rest. This is fucking terrifying for a number of reasons. One, it sets precedent for other cities to do this too, for other cities to say, well, I don't like them in my park, so I'm also going to do an internment camp. I'm also going to concentrate all of this population of people into one spot and control their movement. And we're going to see it happen. Medford is always close behind Grants Pass or vice versa. And we're going to see more criminalization of people who use drugs. We're going to see people get beat up in the streets for being accused of drug users. We're going to see people stigmatize drug users in ways that we've always seen, but it's going to get worse. Shit's rough. Shit's rough. And here's the thing. I used to be a drug user.
Gas.
Oh my God.
Pearls clutched.
And the thing is that, you know, I have a house. I have a car. I have a job. And I have all of these really nice, shiny things that I really appreciate in my life. But if I didn't have any of those things, I would be using drugs. I would absolutely be using drugs. And that's not to say that without my shiny, fancy things, that I would be led to drugs. But I am extremely privileged in the sense that I have everything I need to not have to depend on them anymore. And if I didn't have those things, if I didn't have one of those things, if I did not have my house and I had to live in my car, I would absolutely be on drugs again, because being unhoused in Oregon is absolutely fucking hell. Absolutely hell. And people who do drugs that live outside, which is not all of them, deserve the same dignity and respect that anyone who lives inside deserves. Anyone who does drugs in a way that we don't stigmatize deserves. Your dad goes to the bar on the weekends and drinks with his buddies. He is a drug user.
And that's a safe consumption site.
That's a safe consumption site, right? Your mom drinks wine after work to wind down. She is a drug user. Your uncle snorts coke every year that y'all go on your vacation to Hawaii. He is a drug user. But we don't consider these people drug users because they're not unhoused, they're not poor, they're living the American dream, they have jobs. The stigmatization of drug users is ever going. And as long as the drug war continues, it will just get worse and people will continue to die. We are in an epidemic. Opiates are killing people faster than any war, than any disease that has happened in the United States. The opiate epidemic is killing people rapidly. And it is not the fault of the users. It is not the fault of the people taking these drugs. And it's not the fault of Narcan. And it's not the people giving them safe use supplies. This is not enabling. What is the problem is people who are criminalizing people who use these drugs, people who are not focusing on the fact that it's these pharmaceutical companies that are unwilling to do anything like make Narcan free, to make it easily accessible for people. These pharmaceutical companies that started the opiate epidemic, they're unwilling to recognize that and instead blame the easy target, which is the user. A lot of people, you know, they talked about this in the presidential debate as well, of like, the drugs are coming over the border. Yeah, they are coming over the border. That's not the Mexican people's fault. That's not the user's fault. It's not Mexico's fault. It is a pipeline that has been happening for many, many years. And stopping people from coming over the border is not the solution. Stopping people from doing drugs is not the solution. There are systematic changes that need to happen to make it easier for people to exist and live. But we refuse to acknowledge that. And because of that, the United States needs to be abolished.
Period.
Anyway.
Amongst other reasons.
Yeah.
As well.
For
There's
real.
many reasons the United States needs to be abolished.
One of
That
many.
is one of them.
One of many. Anyway. Wow. Look at us.
Wow.
We're doing it. Wow. We've covered a lot in a very short amount of time. What do we have to talk about, Torin?
Well, some other things have also happened recently.
Whoa, tell me about them.
Along with suing the city of Medford, we disrupted a couple town halls.
Interesting. Tell me more.
So there's these guys, silly little goofy little guys, go by the name of Ron Wyden and Cliff Bentz. They are Congress people, not Congress people. Who are they? What do they do?
Okay, so Ron Wyden is the senator.
Yeah.
Of Oregon. Ron Wyden is the senator of Oregon. And Cliff Bentz is a representative of Oregon in general. He is considered a congressman.
Yeah.
Whatever that fucking means. Anyway, continue.
So, Ron Wyden in July held a town hall, and then in August, Cliff Bentz held a town hall. We showed up to both of those and interrupted them. You can see footage here.
And I do have a couple of things that...
This is the First Amendment protest! Senator Ron Wyden, we find you guilty of aiding in the genocide of Palestinians. Ron Wyden has received $1.3 million from the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. Ron Wyden opposed genocide. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Representative Cliff Bentz, we find you guilty of aiding in the genocide of Palestinians. What would you do during a genocide? What do you think you would be doing during the Holocaust? What would you be doing?
Am I being detained? Oh, can you tell me why I'm being detained? Can you tell me why I'm being detained?
Great stuff.
Incredible. My favorite part was the part in the video.
That was a great part.
It was a good part.
I'm glad we agree on that, Sam.
Yeah, it was a good one.
That was a good part of the video.
There was a stark difference between these two, I would say.
A little bit.
Right? One thing that is a big difference that, we realized is Ron Wyden is a Democrat, right? Which is cool. You do you, dog. And Cliff Bentz is a Republican. So we knew that there was going to be a difference in the crowds, but we didn't realize what exactly was going to be different. So when we went to the Ron Wyden town hall, there were so many police. So many. I would say maybe 20 police officers. And we did the exact same thing that we did at that one as we did with the Cliff Bentz one. People stood up and they started reading a script, interrupting the town hall. There was many of us. I was recording at the time. Many people were yelling, and he ended up stopping his town hall and calling it off until we ended up leaving. We left. He started it up after we left, but very few people were there. But the next month, we went to the Cliff Bentz town hall. Very little police presence there.
Yeah.
I think there was two agencies. There was MPD, the Medford Police Department, and the local sheriff's department, which is Jackson County. And I think there was only 2 officers on scene.
Yeah.
And within a minute of Torin and our friend standing up and doing the exact same thing they did at the Ron Wyden town hall, they were detained. Put in handcuffs, removed from the building. So it was a very stark difference.
And told that we were being fully arrested.
Yeah.
They said that because of our actions, that was disorderly conduct and that we were under arrest, which is not legal. We were not breaking the law. They could certainly remove us from the event. They could trespass us from the event. But arresting us for simply speaking to our representative, not legal. Like, there was no posted rules. There was no posted code of conduct for the event saying that we couldn't do that. So sure, they could tell us to leave and make us leave. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a crazy day. I mean, I think seeing the stark contrast, because, I think that the big thing is that they knew that they were in the wrong because they let them go. Like, neither Torin or our other friend got sent to the local jail. They were let go within 15 minutes of getting detained, probably less. And I think it was a scare tactic.
Yeah, it was absolutely a scare tactic.
Yeah, and the other thing is that the sheriff's department came in full swing. I think there was 6 or 7 police cars that showed up within that 10 minutes of them getting detained, which leads us to believe that they had this planned. Like they were planning for a disruption, and they were planning to be violent about it, which they were. It was violent. I think at some point while I was recording, there were people, while our other friend was getting detained, there were people calling for the police to break her arms and to pepper spray her and to shoot her and to tase her. And, you know, as much as we don't love Democrats, that didn't happen with the Ron Wyden one. Mm-hmm. There was a guy in a wheelchair that tried to run Torrance toes over.
How dare you support occupation? How dare you? Hey, do not assault me.
But there wasn't a violent suppression of what we were doing. In fact, Ron Wyden tried to turn it around to make him look good, and he was like, "This is what it looks like to let free speech ring. This is what it looks like."
Can you please go continue your protest outside? They tried to do the PR thing. It did not work.
No, and I think it's good because it showed that will not work. Mm-hmm. And it also, I think, with the Cliff Bentz one, I think they think that the scare tactic makes us scared. Mm-hmm. But in reality, we know now that they can't do anything. Mm-mm. Because part of what they said at the Cliff Bentz one is they were like, well, we're letting you go because the venue people don't want to press charges, which of course they don't. What charges are there to press?
We didn't break the law.
No.
So there's no charges to press.
No, there was it was just pearl clutching at the end of the day. But, you know, if we ever have another town hall, I'm going to be excited to see what happens.
I am.
Yeah.
And why did we disrupt those town halls?
That's a good question. Let's talk about that. So Ron Wyden, the senator of Oregon, is a Democrat. We all know this, right? He is on the left, so they say. And many people see him as someone who is a legislator in Oregon, someone who passes laws, a person who does the good work in Oregon. Ron Wyden is also one of the top. He has received some of the most money from AIPAC than any other senator in the United States. I think he's in the top 10. And Torin, can you tell me what AIPAC is?
Yes. AIPAC is the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. So it is a committee that basically works to give politicians money so that they will spread propaganda that is pro-Israel. I'm sure they do a lot more than that too, but that's kind of the big thing that they do, is they give money to politicians. They basically pay off politicians to be pro-Israel. So yeah, Ron Wyden has received about $1.3 million from AIPAC. Cliff Bentz has only received about $7,000 from AIPAC, but Cliff Bentz is also just way more pro-Israel in the first place, so he kind of didn't need to be paid off as much. Cliff Bentz is just, he's just a very staunchly pro-Israel Republican, and Ron Wyden is also very pro-Israel, but not quite as aggressively as Cliff Bentz is.
Yeah, and I think something that we've noticed is, right, so Ron Wyden, Democrat, he is all for the left, for the people, has received so much fucking money from AIPAC. And as a self-proclaimed Jewish American, right? But he is a Jewish American, also self-proclaimed. But so he rides on the platform of like, well, yes, of course, I support Israel defending itself, and yes, I take money from them. But as a Jewish American, he rides on that. Like he rides on, well, if you criticize me for this, you know what that means.
You're anti-Semitic. And he doesn't say that. But the thing is that a lot, let's talk about Kamala Harris, right? A lot of Democratic politicians ride on this, well, they deserve the right to defend themselves, but we need a two-party solution. Mm-hmm. They deserve the right to defend themselves, but I think that we should have a ceasing of violence. A ceasing of the shooting.
Yeah. So, and Ron Wyden is no different, like he is much more quiet about it than Cliff Bentz is. Speaking of Cliff Bentz, many people have reached out to Cliff Bentz, urging him to call for a ceasefire, right? Asking him, please, 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 this needs to happen. This killing needs to stop. And he has gone public and released statements and sent them back to us, signed, that he staunchly supports Israel and their right to defend themselves, but he also supports the right for it to continue to happen because he's a piece of shit. But at the end of the day, liberals and Republicans, they both support the same things. Liberals are just a little more fancy about it.
Yeah. And other things that they have both done in support of Israel is Cliff Bentz signed the Iron Dome Supplemental Appropriations Act, which aimed to give, like, it was over $1 billion or several $1 billion, I don't remember the exact amount, to Israel for their Iron Dome defense system. And Ron Wyden signed, what was it, the Israel Anti-Boycott Act. Ron Wyden has very adamantly been anti-Israel boycotts. So they both have like actively tried to pass legislation to take our tax dollars and send it to Israel for them to continue their colonization, to continue their genocide of Palestinians, and to suppress our rights as Americans to protest that and to disagree with that, and try to stop that from happening. They are anti-us. Mm-hmm. They are anti the people exercising our willpower and deciding how our government should act.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. As of filming this, what was it, 2 days ago was the presidential debate, right? It was the Trump v. Kamala. Jesus Christ. Trump v. Kamala Harris presidential debate. And in that debate, the question, of course, was raised of, do you support, or what, it was specifically about Palestine. It was like, do you support a ceasefire in Palestine or something along those lines? And something that Trump did that I thought was very, very silly is he claimed that Kamala is very anti-Israel. And he claimed that Kamala hates any Muslim person or any Arab person, right?
And that if Kamala became president, that Israel would cease to exist.
God, I wish. That's a vote for me.
Only.
That's a vote for me, baby. But here's the thing. That's not going to happen. And it was very silly to hear Trump say this because, of course, the right and the left and many, sectors believe that Israel has a right to exist on Palestinian land and has the right to occupy this land. So, we are seeing this in not only local politics, but we're seeing it all over the country. Kamala Harris believes that Israel deserves the right to colonize Palestine. She thinks that we deserve the right to get the oil that comes from that when they do that. And Cliff Bentz is no different. Ron Wyden is no different. If anything, they're worse because they're local and they're doing it to local people and they're trying to spread propaganda. So it comes back to why we interrupted this town hall. We interrupted this town hall because we believe that if you let people who are talk pieces for genocide talk about it to local people or to people in general, if you just let that happen, you're no better than them. If you're just letting that happen in your communities or you're not doing something to stop it or to speak out against it, you're no better than them doing it, in my opinion. And so we went to these town halls and we decided no platform for genocide. We said these people support genocide and they support the continuation of murder in Gaza. And so we are going to stop them from speaking. And it worked with Ron Wyden. And it worked for a minute with Cliff Bentz. Mm-hmm. Something that is really important that's come out of this is that local news stations have started reporting and talking about Palestine, using the words Palestine. And it's unfortunate that it has come about by saying that we are pro-Palestinian protesters, because we are, but it should be talked about outside of just a bunch of people interrupting a town hall. It's been good to see it in the local media, but I think the big issue is that yes, they're talking about it, but they're only talking about it in the context of us interrupting. They're not talking about what's happening. They're not talking about the fact that it is a genocide. They're calling it a war still. And it shouldn't have to be just us going and forcing them to talk about it. The other thing is they're not really talking about it. Mm-mm. They're just saying the words.
Yeah. They read our press release, which is great. That is more things out there in the public that everyone's seeing. That's great. But also they should be reporting on a genocide that's happening more than this is what this organization sent us about the thing they did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think, it's really cool that we got to interrupt the town halls and that we got to interrupt genocidal talk pieces talking about genocide. But I think, to me, it doesn't feel as satisfying knowing that the news is more focused on us than the actual problem.
And on the subject of Palestine.
Let's talk about Palestine!
Let's talk about the latest things that have been happening in Palestine.
Oh my God.
It is never ending.
The horrors, the absolute atrocities that people are experiencing in Gaza is incredible. There's a few things that we are going to talk about today, and a little bit of a trigger warning. Obviously, as we all know, the travesties that are happening in Palestine are just horrid, beyond comprehensions. You know, people. I've seen a lot of shit in my life, and I could not comprehend the horrors that these people are experiencing on a daily basis. And so we're going to talk about just a few things that have been happening recently, but keep in mind, it's not going to be easy to talk about. It's not going to be easy to think about. And we're going to be talking about death. We're going to be talking about people being found by their families. We're going to be talking about bodies. These are things to keep in mind. And if you don't want to hear about that, I understand, but I encourage you to stay and listen to it because it's important that we all know this. The reason it's being put online by the people experiencing it is so that we can see it and spread it to the world, because people need to know what's happening.
Yeah. At this point, the Gazan Health Ministry has it seems to me at least, has almost entirely stopped keeping track of the official number of deaths, because, like, what is the point at this point? And also they're so overwhelmed by how many people are being killed that, like, how do you even do that? So the official confirmed death number is over 40,000 people at this point in Gaza, and the estimated confirmed death number is over 186,000 people. And the reason that the estimated number is so much higher than the confirmed number is for a lot of reasons, but essentially the confirmed numbers are from people that have been identified through multiple means of identification, people who have been directly killed by bombs, by gunfire from Israel. And so if they're just missing, or their body can't be identified because of how dismembered they are, or they died due to disease or dehydration or malnutrition, that's not counted in the official death count. So because there's all of those deaths that are happening that fall under those circumstances, the estimated death toll is over 186,000. And that number of 186,000 is a couple months old at this point. So it's more than likely over 200,000 at this point, if not even higher than that. So just the amount of death that's happening, the amount of murders that are happening in Gaza and all over Palestine at the hands of the Israeli occupational forces is incredible in an awful way. And so let's get into some of the specific things that have been going on recently. So recently, Israel has been more active, shall we say, in the West Bank, which is north of Gaza. They have killed a lot of people in the last several weeks in the West Bank, and most notably recently, there was a Turkish-American activist who was murdered by Israel in the West Bank. She had been taking part in a protest against settlement expansion in the West Bank and was murdered. She was, I believe, shot in the head by IOF soldiers.
Something else about we went to an event in Sacramento recently, and we talked to some people who know a few of the folks that are in Gaza right now, Americans that went to Gaza to do mutual aid and help fight against the occupation. Some of the things that they have talked about, and in some interviews that we've seen specifically about this murder, everyone has the same sentiment of, like, this is an absolute travesty that this person was murdered, just trying to help, just trying to get people the supplies and support that they needed. But every person that's talked about this urges people to be reminded that this is one of hundreds of thousands of people who have been murdered. And yes, they were American, and yes, they came to Palestine to help, but they cannot be the only life that we mourn. It cannot be the only life that we call a travesty. And that, unfortunately, is happening in a lot of places where people are saying, this American has died, what a travesty, and now they're worried. But we can't forget the thousands and thousands and thousands of lives that are being lost in Gaza. A video that I saw about the person that was with this American said that they were shot in the head by a sniper. It was an absolute deliberate attack on this person. And they said that one of the first things that they thought of when this happened is people are going to be outraged about this. And how dare they, considering they haven't been outraged before. And incredible travesty. I mean, there's nothing to justify the loss of life for someone simply existing in a space you don't want them to be. But I think it is really important that we also consider that this is one of many.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And aside from that incident specifically, in the West Bank recently, Israel has been escalating their tactics and their killing and allowing Israeli settlers, colonizers, to further encroach on the West Bank. According to this article from the BBC that I'm reading, at least 36 Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank in the last several weeks. And for what? Like, to steal their houses? To bulldoze their olive trees? Israel is murdering these people so that their people can just colonize further. And this is the thing that just keeps happening over and over again. And not a lot of people are talking about what's happening in the West Bank because of how much shit is going on in Gaza. And people should be talking about how much shit is going on in Gaza. And we need to be focusing on what's happening in the West Bank as well, because things are severely escalating there. And it wouldn't surprise me if within the next year, things start escalating in the West Bank to the same level that they're at in Gaza, because Israel's goal is to fully colonize all of Palestine and neighboring countries. They have their plan for Greater Israel, which is also taking over parts of Egypt, parts of Jordan, and other neighboring countries, and just creating this massive ethno-state. And so we need to talk about that as well.
I think something also that a lot of people know, but maybe aren't really speaking on, is that America is heavily involved in this. The United States is essentially the single mother,
the sugar daddy.
Yeah, like the single mom who has a small loan of $1 million in the bank, and Israel is the spoiled child of that mother. And we can't. Israel is committing atrocities beyond human comprehension. The United States has a huge hand in that. The United States hasn't only just been funding it, but they've also been supporting it by our current, like we talk about a Democratic president currently in office. Up until weeks ago, he was very specifically not wanting to talk about a ceasefire. He was very specifically not wanting to talk about Israel and that it is a genocide. Because the United States benefits from Israel continuing their occupation, because of course the United States loves oil, we love land, and there's a lot of that. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of that. And again, just speaking about Americans, an American company called Remax is one of the leading companies wanting to rebuild in Gaza to have settlers reclaim the land. Remax has blood on their hands. The United States has blood on their hands. Israel has blood on their hands. It is a multifaceted system. It is not just Israel. And when we talk about Israel, of course, we're talking about the government, mm-hmm. right? We are talking about Benjamin Netanyahu. We are talking about the government that supports him both in the United States and in Israel. The people of Israel, the citizens of Israel, many, many of them want this to end. Many of them want this to not be happening anymore and recognize that it is a genocide, and they detest their government, just like we do in the United States. So when we talk about Israel, we need to recognize that there are people that live there, but this needs to end. And it doesn't, the two-party solution, just fucking stop. Just fucking stop killing people.
Yeah, a two-state solution is not the thing that's going to make things equitable for Palestinians, because it is still their land to begin with. Israel is only 76 years old at this point. Like, imagine someone breaks into your house and then they say, "This is my house now." You call the police. You're like, "This person is in my house. I need help." And the police go, "Well, let's find a two-party solution for this place so you can both live peacefully in your house." That probably wouldn't feel great because it's your house.
Crazy.
So a two-state solution in Palestine is not the way to go, because it doesn't belong to Israel. Israel has no right to exist. It has no authority to exist other than the authority it has granted itself from the violence that it has exacted towards Palestinians.
Right.
That is the only authority Israel has. It is forced.
Disgusting. Ew.
icky. And in more news, there is a polio outbreak in Gaza. There was supposed to be not a ceasefire, but a lessening in fire, I guess, in Gaza so that people could come in and vaccinate children in Gaza for polio. And while that happened, Israel kept bombing Gaza, killing at least 61 people within 48 hours as the UN was trying to vaccinate children. And polio has reemerged in Gaza because there is not functioning sewage systems. There is not freshwater treatment systems in place. So there is diseases running rampant, including diseases that are largely non-existent anymore. And of course, polio does still exist throughout the world, as we can see here. And it certainly doesn't help that countries like Israel are keeping people in poverty, keeping people without access to resources, bombing people, and that causes things like polio to continue spreading. The campaign to try to vaccinate children in Gaza for polio, their goal was to vaccinate more than 640,000 children under the age of 10. Who's to say how many they were actually able to do? I don't have a number on that at the moment, unfortunately, but I'm guessing they got some vaccinated, which is great. So now Israel can bomb children that are vaccinated.
Yeah. I think, we use the analogy of like a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. Of course, the aid coming into Palestine is good, right? On a basic level, it's good that aid is coming in, but you're like Torin was saying, you're vaccinating children and people in general for a disease that is deadly, that can kill people, so that you can kill them, so that you can murder them and they won't have polio when they are dead. And I think, it's really interesting to see people that support Israel talk about all of the things they're letting come into the borders of Palestine.
They're so generous.
They really do talk about, they're like, well, okay, so you say that Israel it's a genocidal occupation, right? But look at all the aid they're letting in. Look at all the food that they're letting in. Look at the words you're using, right? You want to talk about what they're letting. It's not their land. It's not their space. It's not where they are occupying someone else's land, and they are now letting aid in. I don't, the cognitive dissonance that comes from people that support Israel is insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. And I'm fucking crazy. So don't get me wrong. But that shit's bonkers.
And we're not done with news.
Let's keep going, talking about all of the terrible things that are happening in Palestine.
So, in the last week, Israel bombed a tent camp in Gaza, in southern Gaza. And at least 40 civilians were killed that were staying in tents because their houses had been destroyed or they had to evacuate from other parts of Gaza. And then, while they were sleeping in their tents, they got blown up. And we have some footage from the wreckage of this massacre to show you from people that are in Gaza.
Everyone, this is Bissam from Gaza, surviving the day 341 of the genocide, and I'm now in Mawasi, Khan Yunis. So tonight, after the midnight, actually, the Israeli army committed a massacre here. If you don't know Mawasi area is a sandy, natural, it's a coastal area. That's why people here are living on sand, okay? They're building their tents from nylon and clothes and blankets on the sands. So when the Israeli army tonight bombed them using 5 huge missiles, each is 2,000 pounds, they caused this massive holes, 3 craters, like each is 9 meters depth, and that caused actually not only in the bombing of the place, disappearing of the whole place, but also some of the tents and the property and even bodies flow to this area, besides the bombing. Like, you need to know that the civil defense spent the whole night searching about dead bodies, and entire families were buried under the rubble under the sand after this bombing. They found 40 dead bodies, 40 people were killed until now, 60 injured, but until this moment a lot of people are missing because simply people were sleeping in their tents living on sand. So they were bombed, killed, and buried under the sand. The civil defense said that it's nearly impossible to find everything and even all the human pieces and all the bodies, but they're still searching until now. The destruction is massive in the area where am I now. I mean, this is the bombing area. These are the shrapnels and the destroyed camp besides the area, and here is the same thing, and there also. Look at the greenhouses there. And there. Like, you need to know, after all of this destruction, the Israeli representatives and military spokesmen said that they took all the procedures to protect civilians and to minimize the deaths between civilians. If they took all procedures and this is the result, I don't want to imagine how would be the result if they did not take any procedures or tried to protect the civilians. So they are lying, as usual, as they lied about the safe areas before. Look at this hole. Look at this hole. It's about 9 meters depth, caused by 5 bombs. Each is 2,000 pounds, US made 2,000 pounds bombs. Look at the whole destruction. ايش كنت بتحكي لتفرج؟
طلع كيف البلح اسمر اسمر من كتر البرود.
شوف لي التراب شلونه.
كيف داير نصاب.
انت وين ساكن؟
قدام شويه. صحيت قالت لي امي قف بسرعه، وبعدها رحنا نمنا عند دار خاله. شفنا اشلاء ومقطعين والروس وسبحين.
The thing is that because they are until now searching about human pieces and dead bodies, the smell is still until now as blood, as dead bodies. The gunpowder is everywhere. Look at the trees, look at the sand itself, look at the color of the sand. The smell is also gunpowder. So my question now, is anyone still working or believing in working for a ceasefire? Because for me, I don't believe in a ceasefire. I don't believe in anything that Israel is talking about or telling us to do or telling us to go, because this is the only safe area in Khan Yunis, and here we are being killed even here. So nothing is happening but more and more death. Nothing. Look, so the bombing is over there. Okay? And the destruction is over here. And they're telling you, they're lying to you. They're lying on your eyes and telling you that they took the procedures, the enough procedures to protect civilians. Wallah, I just wonder if not. The destruction will just reach you. If not, Israelis.
I know that these videos are really hard to watch. And I know that following the news in Gaza is something that can become really exhausting. I know that I've experienced some empathy fatigue in our activism work over the years, but being a United States citizen, living in the United States, being so far away from this carnage and being unable to do anything, or what feels like being unable to do anything, is devastating and breaks my heart. But I think something that's really important is, while being on the ground in Gaza is really amazing, and I'm really happy that there are people going and doing on the ground work there. Some things that you can do while being so far away, whether it be in the US or in Europe in general, or wherever you're at, if you're far away and you are struggling to find something to do, there are things to do. One of the biggest things that we have learned about is called Operation Olive Branch, which we will link in the description of this video, but it's a really amazing project that has compiled a lot of different resources on how you can help families, people, just general causes in Palestine. There's specific GoFundMes that you can fund their specific asks. One of the biggest things in this Linktree is talking about eSIMs for Gaza. And what eSIMs for Gaza is, it's a push and really it's just a big project that a lot of people have collaborated on to try to get eSIMs into Gaza and into the hands of Gazans, because one of the biggest tactics that's used in genocide, or they call it the war tactics, is disabling communication in the place that you're trying to occupy, or the place that you're trying to disable. And communication, especially in the age of the internet, is so important. And so people like Basan, who was in that first video, that are reporting on this, and families that are trying to get out of Gaza, or doctors, nurses, people that are trying to communicate, these are the people that benefit from eSIMs. And so this zine that Torin showed you has step-by-steps on how to do that in certain apps, but the website that we showed you also has more information on how to do that. If you are struggling to figure out what you can do, this is something you can do. If you can't do monetary support, there's also many things in here about just advocacy, spreading information, sharing. Don't stop talking about Palestine, because as soon as we stop talking about it, their voices are no longer heard in one of the many countries that is supporting their genocide. So on that, Torin, tell me more.
In the description of this on YouTube, we will put a link to a post about eSIMs for Gaza that goes over specifics of how to do that. And the other thing you can do is be a pain in the ass.
Woo!
Like we did. Go and disrupt town halls. Yell at people in power. Yell at congresspeople. Don't let them forget that they're being complicit in genocide. Don't let the people showing up to talk to them forget that they are talking to people who are complicit in and enabling genocide. Keep showing up. Keep doing anything you can to throw a wrench in the gears of all the shit that's happening. If you live in an area where there is a weapons manufacturer, that's a thing you can do. Use your imagination. I'm not advocating anything specifically.
I think that that's a really good point. I think that, we speak a lot about Americans because we are American, but like a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people in Ireland and in England speak about feeling so helpless and so hopeless and not being able to do anything, but you can. And it's not just monetary. If you talk about it, you are doing something. If you yell at your family members who say that Israel has a right to defend itself, you are doing something. You can do something. And I promise it'll make you feel better. I think that with this genocide, there's a lot of talk up. People are making it very politicized, and it is political. Everything is political. I believe that. At the end of the day, though, this is about humans dying, being murdered in their tents and in their homes, and it is a humanitarian tragedy that is happening. And people who refuse to see it as that, or who are talking about it like this is some kind of game, should be corrected, and you should correct them. It is uncomfortable, and it's not going to be fun at first, but it is something that you should do, and is something we owe to Palestinians. Hello, it's Sam in Post again, in yet a different outfit and in a different location. And I'm here to tell you about the BDS movement. BDS stands for Boycott, Divest, and Sanction. And it is yet another thing that you can do while being so far away from the travesties happening in Palestine. Some of the things you can do to boycott, the BDS recommends boycotting Remax, Chevron, HP, Puma, things like that. Also, other pressure targets are Amazon, Disney, Airbnb, Expedia. You can also boycott food companies like McDonald's, Domino's, Pizza Hut. What a bummer, but these are all the big ones. There are things you can do. Don't buy from Papa John's. You're doing something by not buying, and you're also actively going against the Israel Anti-Boycott Act, and that's really cool. Anyway, this has been me, in Post. Oh my gosh, Torin. I've been thinking.
What have you been thinking about, Sam?
I've been thinking about our word of the week.
What's our word of the week?
Deplatforming.
Deplatforming. What is that?
Let's talk about it. Deplatforming, in the sense that we're talking about, is making sure that people who are spewing rhetoric that is oppressive don't have a platform, right? So in our example that we talked about today, we went into town halls and created a space where people didn't have a platform to talk about promoting a genocide. That is deplatforming. Torin, can you give me another example of deplatforming?
That's a great question, Sam. Another example of deplatforming is when, let's say, some person, a bigot, a right-winger, shows up to a thing. Let's say it's a pride event or a farmer's market or a festival, and they are live streaming. They're preaching to the masses, spreading the word of God as they see it. And they're live streaming, showing event attendees' faces. An example of deplatforming would be interrupting their live stream. As we talked about at the beginning of this episode, playing copyrighted music so that their live streams get taken down, blocking their video footage physically so that they're not recording people, just playing music so that they cannot be literally heard on the live stream. That is an example of deplatforming, not allowing them to have their own platform to spread these things, just like a senator at a town hall.
Oh my God. I'm so glad we're learning words together.
I am so glad too. We're expanding our vocabulary.
Yes. Our vocabulary is extra extended, hyper extended, if you will.
Hyper extended vocabulary.
We need to put a brace on our vocabulary because it is hyper extended.
My knees are hurting. But that's because of the plantar fasciitis.
Also known as the policeman's heel.
Shut up. Shut up.
Wow. We talked about a lot of things today, and I really appreciate your company, Torin. And I really appreciate
you too.
And I really appreciate and I really appreciate you, our viewers. You're the reason that we can continue to do this. You're the reason that we do continue to do this. Your support means so much to us, and it helps us continue to build community and help our community members. Oh my God. Thank you so much. How can you support us? Torin, tell me more.
You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/RVPeppershakers. It is very appreciated. Anything helps.
Also, you may be wondering at the end of this video, Sam and Torin, how do I get involved with doing things? How do I just do this? It feels so hard to do it. Just do it.
Just do it.
You should do it. We talked about many things here, right? We talked about you can do the Operation Olive Branch, right? You can donate eSIMs. You can talk to your senators and legislators, and you can yell at people and be annoying. But at the end of the day, it's about just doing it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. Just do it.
You need to just do it.
Just do it. Do the thing. Don't wait for someone else to do it.
This is my frame.
I'm aware.
Anyway, you should do it. That's what we did. That's how the Pepper Shakers was started.
We just did it.
We just did it.
We just did it.
And every time we've done something, it's just been we're going to do this.
What if we just went and yelled at some people?
What if we just did that? What if we applied for funding?
What if we did it?
What if we did a podcast?
It's so quirky. What if we did it?
What if we did a podcast? And here we are.
And now we're doing it.
Now we're doing something.
Something's happening. Are we going to get
Anyway, this has been Saturday Night Live with Sam and Torin. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Big old fat junkie bitch. Dumb junkie bitch.